President Donald Trump just a little while ago on the Massie thing. He was a bad guy. He deserves to lose. Thank you very much, everybody. That Trump quote coming from ABC News tonight. We're waiting to hear from Charles Booker here in Louisville in the Portland neighborhood. Hope to bring you that live in a moment. But first, we've got a lot to talk about. I want to talk about that incredible scene we saw with Thomas Massie. Seemed almost most like a rally, Iris and David, than a concession speech. He said, in fact, if I knew this speech was going to be so much fun, I'd have come out a lot earlier. But he did take a shot at Ed Gallrein right from the top, saying he had hoped to get a hold of him to concede the race, but he said, I had a hard time finding him in Tel Aviv. Sort of a volley toward the $9 million in AIPAC money coming into this race. What did you think about that when you heard that?
Congressman Massie, bitter into the end here. And I mean, that kind of rhetoric is what, accumulated over these months here, and we got the results as expected. And so, Congressman Massie is digging in, and can't say I'm surprised at sort of the posture and how he's exiting this primary night. This
concession speech, though, was huge and loud and boisterous, and it almost seemed like he was giving a victory speech, David. So where in the end can we say he lost this race?
I think he got outspent. I think that,
but he said money wasn't an issue. Remember, he said we didn't lose this race because we didn't have enough money.
I understand that, but at the same time, what you had was there was a lot of outside money that came in on this race to kind of frame him as someone who was not being loyal to President Trump. Even though Massie will say, I voted with you 90% of the time, but you want 100%, loyalty. So that's that's just the realities of the race. And quite frankly, one of the things when you're the candidate up there and you've run a race and you've seen all this outside money coming in, you're going to get you're going to be bitter. And one of the hard things that you have to do as a candidate is try to hold those emotions in check, particularly when you're giving your concession speech. And I think what you're just seeing there with Congressman Massie is he just like, I'm letting it all kind of hang out.
But Doug, if I may add, yes, money will always be a factor, but what the outside groups and what the contrast messaging towards Massie, what was it about? There were key votes during the first Trump administration and in this current Trump administration where Thomas Massie was the sole no vote in times where he voted with Democrats.
But wait a minute. But remember
times.
With Massie was known as, what was his nickname? Congressman No, because he always voted no. That's what got him into Congress. He was one of the original Tea Party Congress people, along with with Rand Paul. That was his brand. He has always been on brand. But I think that what this shows is your brand can then be in style one cycle or a couple of cycles, and then after a while you're voted out.
This cycle it was
Did it have the short shelf life? That brand?
Tonight we saw the anti-establishment part of the party and how they could perform, and then the Trump domination of leading the Republican Party, and which sort of theme prevailed and what motivated voters, and the anti-establishment piece of, I have this independent streak, clearly did not show up in the way that Congressman Massie needed. And I think because the contrast was, when Trump needed you or when every other Republican fell in line, where were you? You were with Democrats.
Did he fail to recognize this, or was he just a little late to the game to say I voted 90% with Donald Trump, but it's never been personal? Because you're right, that was his mantle. That was his brand. I bucked the trend. I'm going to vote the way my gut tells me I should. I'm not going to vote party politics.
And that would have only worked if CD4 was in lockstep with Congressman Massie. But like what we've seen as Trump has run multiple times now, is that CD4 is loyal to President Trump and how he's performed in the 4th Congressional District. And so it would be one thing if polls showed early that, that voters resonated with sort of bucking the establishment, that libertarian independent streak, but no information has ever shown that that was going to be a clear delineation from how Republican voters would feel comfortable leaving sort of the Trump camp. That never materialized.
Well, let's talk about that. President Trump, and I have some notes around here somewhere about the margin of victory that he had in that district. Here we go. Trump received about 67% of the district vote in the 2024 general election, carrying all 20 counties with at least 59% of the vote. Thomas Massie also had huge margins when he would run. So you believe that that has never eroded in that district,
No.
the Donald Trump support?
No, and I would also note that Congressman Massie, because of the voter sort of history of CD4, he never had a competitive race. The last competitive race he had was when that was an open seat with the retirement from Congressman Jeff Davis, and there was multiple Republicans running in that primary. Since then, Congressman Massie has not had a competitive race. And so I don't want to diminish his tenure during Congress as a campaigner. However, you contrast that with someone like a Congressman Andy Barr, who just secured the Republican nomination for the U.S. Senate seat, being in CD6 and not being successful the first time he ran for that House seat and running time and time again with formidable Democratic opponents. That's a different kind of campaign muscle that you build up over time. And Congressman Massie's never had to be tested on that.
So is Rand Paul going for 2028, or is the
Someone
Senate
needs
race?
to check on Senator Paul and to see how he's going to, operate in this current Congress, what kind of rhetoric we can expect from him. And then, yeah, his seat is up. And so I think it would be interesting to see national party leaders, if they're going to have a short-term memory of the primary of 2026, or if this is going to be a theme where the Trump and sort of his allies will continue to intervene in Republican primaries.
So Donald Trump's winning record so far goes back to the Indiana primary, 5 of the 7 candidates he gets. Then we come to Bill Cassidy in Louisiana just this Saturday. And here in Kentucky today, 3. We're talking Andy Barr, Ed Gallrein, and Alvarado in central Kentucky. Ralph's been around a long time.
Yes, and so a big victory night for President Trump. He swept his Kentucky seats.
Is the Senate race different? So should Rand Paul now be worried if Donald Trump were to decide to turn on him?
I think so. I mean, you kind of like just what what we're seeing now. I mean, even that being said, you still got there's 2 years between now and when Senator Paul will be up for re-election. So some things could change. At that point, President Trump would not be on the ballot, couldn't, run for re-election. So we'll see what type of political power he maintains at that point.
He did say, hey, I'm going to be in Congress for 7 more months, brought up the Epstein files. So do you see Thomas Massie making any more headway on that for 7 months, or is he just a total lame duck from here on out?
I believe he's a total lame duck. I mean, his congressional record shows as much. He does not have any legislative accomplishments in all the terms that he served. He can join congressional Democrats in that pursuit and get a particular audience. But he took a jab at Fox News tonight, which I thought was interesting, and I'm not sure how productive. He's trying to really lay the groundwork for the next 7 months here for himself to have a real platform to speak to the conservative base. But yeah, he may be kind of talking to a wall at this point.